I finally got closer to my daughter after years of fighting, but only because my greedy future son-in-law tried to blackmail me about my affair. He had no idea what he'd unleashed, and now he's out of our lives for good. 6 months ago, something happened that completely changed the relationship between my daughter and me. We'd spent years butting heads, especially since she turned 16. She seemed to go against every single thing I said just for the sheer joy of it. Even when I tried to set rules that took her feelings into account, she'd break them outright. And once, she even told me she never asked to be born, and I'd had no right to tell her what to do. That stung. I honestly wished something would happen that would make her realize she was wrong, but it never came as quickly as I hoped. After she graduated high school, the situation got even worse. Once, she left home and disappeared for 2 weeks without answering my calls. None of her friends would tell me anything, and I was desperate enough to involve the police. When she found out, she threatened to never come home until I dropped the missing person report. I tried to explain I just wanted to know she was safe, but she hung up. The next day, I had to swallow my pride and go tell the police she'd contacted me. Still, Laura didn't come back for another week, and I was so relieved and surprised to find her asleep at home one evening. My housekeeper told me she'd returned with a sour attitude and drunk. Only later did I learn she'd run off to Malibu with a dumb boy from her school. It absolutely breaks a mother's heart to have a child who resents her simply for bringing her into the world. Maybe it was because she never had a father. He left as soon as he found out I was pregnant, so for 20 years I raised her alone. I thought that'd make her understand and appreciate me, not blame me for his absence, but no luck. I spent massive amounts getting her ready for college, but she refused to go. In her words, "I don't need college to live." I tried everything to secure her future, but eventually I had to accept her choices and hope she'd see sense someday. I just never imagined it would take this long. One evening, Laura showed up at home with a young man she introduced as Martin. He was ridiculously muscular, blonde, beaming, with biceps bursting from his sleeves and shoulders broad enough for all his arrogance and greed. His whole presence was stifling. I tried to keep it together, waiting to hear what Laura had to say about him. She immediately said he was her fiancé and she didn't want any drama from me. I was furious but kept it inside, just managing a stiff, "okay," and asking why he was here. She argued that she had every right to bring whoever she wanted home. I was already seeing red from the disrespect, but then she dropped the bomb. Martin would be living with us in the estate, and she wanted me to give him a job at my company. If not for the legal ramifications, I'd have seriously considered slacking her right then. But I held back, managed to act calm, and ate my dinner in silence, even though I was boiling inside. The whole time, Martin shoveled food in, like he'd never seen a fork before, and I was cringing for him. I asked if he had a college degree. He nodded before Laura cut me off, saying my questions didn't matter because he'd be her husband and I was supposed to give him the job. Reluctantly, I gave him a position, anything to keep Laura from blowing up again. Ever since she was 16, she'd done everything I warned her not to, just to prove a point. After dinner, I retreated to my room and saw them moving Martin's stuff in. I was so embarrassed. What kind of mother lets her daughter's fiancé move in with them? Right then, I got a call from my friend, and more recently boyfriend, Andrew. He sensed something was wrong, as always. Andrew had been my lifeline since Laura first ran off. First as a colleague and friend, and then, after she'd left for Malibu, we became something more. He'd helped me through so much, and one night our friendship crossed into romance, awkward but honest, and we became even closer. I told Andrew about Martin, and he tried to reassure me. "He's just a kid, and maybe you can influence him for the better," he said. We had more than enough houses on the estate, and maybe a solid job would help Martin grow up. I softened a bit, and then Andrew changed the subject. He was about to take a new job in New York, at a prestigious fashion company called Devil Wears. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. Andrew had always had an eye for style, and I was happy for him, even if it meant we'd be apart. As hard as it was, I knew better than to hold on to someone just because I was afraid to lose them. After 42 years on Earth, I'd learned to let go and enjoy things while they last. I wished Laura would have her own awakening. Back at home that night, Martin confronted me about rumors at work. Employees were complaining he was making sexual advances. I wanted to scream. I told him I'd handle any real issues if they arose, but I expected him to act like an adult in my house and at my company. He shrugged it off, then griped about Andrew talking to him about his behavior, saying Andrew had no right. I snapped back that Martin had no right to freeload in my house, but decided not to bring it up with Laura. She was so obsessed with Martin, she'd accuse me of trying to ruin her life, so why bother? 2 weeks later, I was at the office when Laura texted me, "It's time Martin got his own car." That made me crack a laugh, so painful it turned to tears. My secretary rushed in worried, and I waved her away, feeling anger, sadness, and exhaustion all at once. When I got home, Laura was waiting, demanding we talk immediately. I was exhausted but gave in, slumping onto the couch. She wanted me to buy a car for Martin, someone who barely contributed, lived in my home, and drained my bank account. I'd just spent hundreds on him days before, so for once, I stood up for myself. I told Laura Martin was a gold digger, and I wasn't spending a cent more on him. Laura flipped and threatened to leave home forever, swearing she'd never even attend my funeral because I clearly didn't care about her happiness. While she raged, Martin walked in and pleaded with her not to leave, promising he'd win my trust. I just walked away, wiped out. I didn't eat. I just went to bed. Later that night, I heard the car screech into the driveway. Laura and Martin were back. Who knows from where? Probably a party. I tried to sleep, just grateful I'd stood my ground. A week passed, then Martin barged into my office at work, smiling creepily. I told him to leave, but he ignored me and launched into a weird speech about how he could uncover anyone's secrets. Suddenly, he made an analogy about a married man sleeping with a woman in a complicated relationship, which made my mind jump to what had recently happened with Derek, the director of production at my company. 3 nights prior, at our company anniversary celebration, Derek and I got drunk and, well, things happened. It was a one-time thing. We both regretted it the next day and agreed to never mention it again. Derek's a good man, married with kids, and our fling was just a mistake. Now Martin seemed to know. He boasted about seeing Derek head to my room and claimed to have overheard everything. I asked how he even knew, and he brushed it off. He made veiled threats about workplace ethics and potentially spreading rumors, clearly enjoying my anxiety. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was spinning. He said he wouldn't tell anyone, as long as I played along. When I asked directly what he wanted, he smiled and said nothing, but I wasn't convinced. That evening, Martin acted suspiciously cheerful at dinner, chatting endlessly. I could tell he felt like he'd trapped me. In the morning, I hoped to avoid him but came downstairs to find him waiting for me at the breakfast table, wearing a smug grin. After a fake polite greeting, he said he needed money for bills. There it was, blackmail, plain and simple, using my mistake with Derek. I tried to play it off, but Martin threatened consequences if I didn't pay. He shoved his phone in my face, and I got a text. Somehow he'd obtained proof of what had happened with Derek. My heart sank. Fearing all hell would break loose if this got out, I paid up, thinking it'd stop. Of course it didn't. Blackmailers only ever want more. Day after day, Martin demanded more money. Each time I caved, hoping it'd end, but it never did. I was completely worn out. Laura, as usual, never listened to me about anything, even though she noticed I was breaking under the strain. I realized I had to put an end to it. So desperate, I called Derek to my office and told him what was happening. He was devastated. I showed him the photos Martin had gotten, and he was totally shaken. Knowing his wife had just gotten a job in Florida, I suggested he transfer to our Florida startup, which I managed as chairperson. Derek agreed, and within days he was gone. A fresh start. Then I reached out to Martin, pretending to cut a deal. He sauntered into my office acting super serious. I asked what exactly he wanted in exchange for deleting the photos and dropping the blackmail. His answer? My entire estate. I actually laughed in disbelief. Surely I'd misunderstood. But no, he meant it. He wanted my house, my assets, everything, just to keep my secret. That was the final straw. I'd always known he was greedy, but using my daughter like this was pure evil. He admitted he never cared about Laura, just wanted my money, and if I handed over the estate, he'd disappear. I was so heartbroken. I could have forgiven everything except him treating Laura like a disposable pawn. The one thing he didn't know was that I recorded our entire conversation. It was all on tape. That same day, I confronted Laura, and for once, she answered my call. As she listened to the recording, she looked crushed and told me she'd just recently found evidence on Martin's phone of him running the same scam on others. Turned out, blackmail was the only thing Martin did for a living. For the first time ever, Laura and I were united. We agreed to call the police. As Martin pulled into the driveway, I had Laura keep him distracted while I snuck into their room and grabbed his phone, then bolted straight to the police station. I filed a complaint, gave them everything, and went home with officers ready to arrest him. We found Martin terrorizing Laura, about to smash her with a vase over the missing phone. The police handcuffed him on the spot. He screamed he'd reveal my secret affair, and I just laughed. Andrew was already gone, Derek was on a different continent, and Martin had nothing on me now. That night, Laura came to my room in tears. We both tried to speak at once, then stopped. A mother knows when her child's really returned. I heard sincerity in her apologies for Malibu, for her threats and disrespect, for everything. I kept calm, but I cried, and so did she. We held each other for a long time, and that was the start of something new. The next day, there was this fresh, positive energy in the house. Laura said she wanted to enroll at Princeton and study business management, something she'd never have considered before. When we talked, she admitted that Martin had convinced her that education was useless. Now, she was truly herself again. These have been some of my happiest days ever. I forgave Laura because she is, above all, my daughter. Our relationship has never been better. And as we celebrated, I got a call from Andrew, just checking up, and we left things open, like maybe it wasn't really the end for us after all. Update 1. Some of you wondered what happened to Martin after his arrest. The police charged him with multiple counts of blackmail and attempted assault. Once Laura and I handed over his phone, they found evidence of his scams involving at least 4 other families. The prosecutor took our side immediately, and right now Martin's in police custody awaiting trial. Laura still struggles with embarrassment over how deeply she was fooled, but she's going to therapy and is 1,000 times happier than before. Edit 2. I saw a lot of questions about Derek's family update. Derek moved to Florida and is doing well, as is his wife. He promised to never contact Martin or anyone related to him, and I believe he's keeping his word. Laura and I are learning to appreciate small milestones in our new relationship. I've even invited Andrew to visit us soon, to see how things unfold now that the dust has settled. This story ends right here. It's interesting to see how the crisis brought mother and daughter together when nothing else had worked for years. The lasting lesson is that sometimes confronting painful truths, as hard as they are, can break even the strongest patterns of division. I've got a question for you. Have you ever been forced to work with someone you mistrusted for the sake of family? How did it turn out? Let me know in the comments.